The other issue that certainly affects the sustainability and our footprint on this world in terms of our staircase is our material selection. Um, Smaller sections of timber, right? Laminated material here, you've got an example there of some spotted gum that's been laminated. If we can get our market to our customers and our market to use laminated material in lieu of solids, the loggers, the sawmillers are going to get far better log recovery. The standard log recovery, say in Tasmanian oak, might be 42%. They might get to 45% if they get very good, good logs. If they could use smaller sections of material, their volume recovery could go over 50%. All right, that would mean that they would log, they'd get basically one tree every 16 or 17 for free. All right, that's another log that you don't have to cut down. Interestingly, in Europe and Japan, for those of you that have travelled, I'm sure a lot, laminated material is very sought after. You know, you're all aware that small sections of material can be glued, and in Europe and Asia, particularly in Japan, it's extremely sought after. In Australia, our palate is much more interested in solids. All right? I think this can be consumer driven. All right? We can talk about certification, we can talk about chain of custody. I think there's only one timber producer in Australia that has chain of custody. That's only one out of hundreds. You can talk about certification. I think what we can do in this room today is we can talk about how we can drive this by specifying laminated material, putting it into our display homes, putting it into our showrooms and things like that. Smaller sections, no worries at all. What allows us to do this is better glue technology. The glues are far better than what they were 10, 15 years ago, and they're constantly improving. You know, PVA glues, cross-linking PVAs are an excellent glue now. They're waterproof. I'm sure you're aware the window industry's used them for a long time. You know, there's waterproof glue. You've got laminated beams which use structural glues. These glues are excellent, and they can hold timber together pretty well, particularly if the timber is coated. Once the timber is sealed, air can't get in, and the moisture won't go out of the material won't shrink and thus delaminate. Well-coated material will stay together, no worries at all. With regards to staircases, we're talking more about joinery size materials. We don't use any flooring sizes, you know, 85 by 19 or anything like that. You will, you know, we use 150 by 38s, you know, 6 by 2, 6 inch and a half, 10 by 2s, and these sort of sizes. Joinery sizes are very, very difficult to get, particularly in the likes of spotted gum. If you use that as an example, Herefords, which are the biggest producer of spotted gum, 8 months ago decided not to produce any more 2-inch. There's none available. I mean, you can get small quantities of it, but if you have a large job or a number of units, you're not going to be able to get it. I just want to hand over to Mark, and Mark will talk about some of the other issues around material selection.
Yeah, I'll just be relatively quick, and obviously it's the one that everyone's been talking about today, which is related to climate change. But in terms of staircases, Rob Gell talked a bit about it, the embodied energy side. Yeah, there's a lot that can be done in terms of stairs with that, obviously through your material selection. The first graph that I've got up here, I'm going to put another one on. This is relating more to the thermal resistance of different materials. I'm sure you're all aware of this. I mean, this isn't new research. Obviously, timber performs well in those areas. So if you were to do that on your staircase, you would be expecting a better level of performance. In terms of embodied energy, timber again is another one for you guys to consider. As with a lot of design, particularly internally, we're moving more to sort of a commercial look in our interior. There's been a big push towards different materials like glass and steel, which Ian was referring to before. But for example, with a mono-stringer staircase, you've probably walked up many of them in a commercial building. They're typically done out of steel. If you weren't aware, they can be done out of timber just as effectively. You have a much smaller carbon footprint. So when you're coming to your design of your staircase, like with everything, obviously think about the materials and in terms of carbon. In the next 6 to 12 months, Signature Stairs is looking to actually create a carbon calculator for our staircases for our clients. Sort of follows on a bit from the discussion regarding the eco specifier earlier today. But yeah, I think if we can drive that and make customers more informed, even at the very local level, I think that will lead to much better outcomes where they can actually see the value that they're going to get from their decisions. Apart from that, are there any questions?
Are there any questions from people? Got time for maybe one or two. Oh.
What's your thoughts on the changes for wire starts out of BCA charges and rises changes?
I knew I'd be asked that. I don't like the change to the 280 going and the 180 rise. I don't think it's a comfortable walk. If you want to talk to some old timers in the industry and look back to, books from the 15th century, the old timers used to say that 10-inch as a going and 7.5 inches a rise was the perfect, and I still don't think that's true today. I think a 280 going and a 180 rise is going to be a very difficult change if it comes in for the industry, bearing in mind 50% of the staircases that I've measured in the last 3 weeks haven't had headroom. And if we have to allow an extra 30 mil for every tread on a long straight flight, can really add up. Again, we're eating into the space. You're building a 22 square townhouse. It's no longer a 3-bedroom, it's 2-bedroom and a study. And it concerns me a lot. The continuous handholds concern me as well. I think that a lot of people are talking about it. I think it's an unnecessary change. Continuous handrail is expensive. It's difficult to make. It's costly, and I don't think that it adds a lot in terms of safety.
Yeah, and from a policy perspective, I think the key thing to really work out is obviously the benefit that we're going to obtain from these type of new regulations relative to the costs. And I think and I hope the powers that be are considering some of these elements.
Okay, thank you very much, Ian and
Thanks
Mark.
very much, guys. Thank you.